Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, amma ba'd. We have with us our Sheikh Alaa Sayyid from Toronto, Canada. And mashallah, he's been kind enough to agree to this chai chat. Most people that agree to this chai chat live to regret it. So alhamdulillah. Sheikh Alaa, it's your first time to Birmingham for our conference and we'd like to welcome you. Jazakallah khair. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless you in your knowledge and in your life. Jazakallah khair. If you just give us some of your background in terms of how you came onto the path of knowledge, the path of becoming a da'i.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah, amma ba'd. Certainly it's a pleasure to be back in Birmingham, and thank you for having me. And I certainly hope I will not regret it after, inshallah. I know where you live, you can run, but you can't hide, inshallah. It's a long story, but I'll make it brief, inshallah. Subhanallah, it started when I was about, I guess, 14 years old. In Egypt, I used to play soccer. And I was a goalie. Just giving you a quick, I was thinking, where is the good stuff, man? I mean,
we're a bit late.
Where you said shy about something. There's only chat, but there's no shy. Okay, so I used to play soccer, and I was a goalie. And we were playing, I used to play for the, and the other team was playing against me. Just in case if you're Egyptian, I don't want any to go into, Ahli and Zamalek and all these rivalry. So I was a goalie in one of those teams, and there was a breakaway. So I dove to take the ball before that man. He's very famous, by the way, very famous soccer player or football player. Forgive me, here you call it football, over there we call it soccer. And so I took the ball off his foot as he was kicking, and he missed the ball and kicked my face instead. So it was a broken nose. After, subhanallah, after a while, I went to Canada, and I'm just recently starting to talk about this. It's nothing to be proud of or whatever. Wallahi, just for the sake, inshallah, for the wisdom behind it and lesson learned, inshallah. Ayyam al-Jahiliyyah, the time of the ignorant era, I used to do some modeling and acting. And this nose started to show. And my agent said that, you should have an operation because it's, in the cattle calls, it's starting to show and so on. So I went to the doctor and he says, it's a very tough operation. If you were my son, I would tell you to stay away from it. So you know what, at the time, shaitan is talking, fame, fortune and all that stuff, the limelight and so on. So they would take a bone off my hip and they rebuild it because it was kicked in just to put the bone back out. And I had the operation, and I stayed in the hospital for two months. I had something called hematoma. The doctor would come up every morning, early. SubhanAllah, it was around the time for Fajr. He would come in and poke a needle in here to make sure that everything is amazing. And then a man next to me died. And that was the turning point in my life. I started to play the video of my life. What did I do? And why is this happening? Maybe there's a message. God Almighty is trying to tell me something. This man died right next to me, so start recalculate. And then you find out you had no life, you had a lifestyle. The reason I say this, wallahi, for the youth to think that this is what it's at, the fame and fortune and all that stuff. Even, people say, wow. And I remember vividly my brother was calling my mom, Jazallah anna khaira, calling her back, and it said, this guy is now famous, blah, 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 and all that stuff. My mom, she said, wallahi, as soon as I hung up the phone, she says, oh Allah, I don't want any fame and fortune. I want my son back. And that's why I stayed in the hospital for 2 months, by the dua of the mother to get me back on track. So I had to leave the country because you couldn't leave this environment. They were haunting you. Come back and do this and let's do these more and all that stuff. So I left Canada and I went to Bermuda for 5 years. And then I started to get into Why? When I went to Egypt to visit, I met some brothers. I will never forget them. I remember them vividly. When I went to Egypt to visit, I listened to the Adhan al-Fajr. And it says, "As-salatu khayrun min al-nawm." I started to cry. I didn't know how to do much, but I went to the masjid. When I went to the masjid, I thought you were supposed to you wear the thobe and you wore something, and the brothers thought that I was an imam or something. I have no idea what I'm talking about. So they put me forward to pray, and I had no idea what to do. So they said, come with us. And I remember going to Dr. Umar Abdul Kafi. His the series of Dar al-Akhirah, the last home. And I couldn't believe it. I started to gobble up these, listen to one, finish one, another one. And I would, Allahu Akbar. And I was invited to a wedding. It's called Islamic wedding. So I didn't know. What do you mean Islamic wedding? You mean, is the belly dancer wearing hijab, or what do you mean Islamic wedding? How does that work? And there was no brothers. I was going around. Is this guy gonna get married? Where's his wife? I didn't know there were. And then I saw the brothers taking out something from their pocket. I won't forget this till I die. They all raised the Quran, opened it up, and it says, Allahu ghayatuna, Allahu ghayatuna, wa rasuluna za'imuna rasuluna, qudwatuna, قرآننا دستورنا قرآننا دستورنا قرآننا شرعتنا جهادنا سبيلنا جهادنا سبيلنا والموت في سبيل الله أسمى أمانينا أسمى أمانينا. And that's what did it for me. They raised in the Quran and they said, this is our goal, to please Allah. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our messenger, he is our role model. This Quran is our law. Our jihad is our goal. And I remembered what I used to do and who I used to be with and what I listened to. And now what I listen to and hear and be with. And after that, there was no turning back. And that's, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us on the straight path, inshallah.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair. From all of the speakers, the scholars, the teachers that you've had over the many years, who would you say was the most inspirational person upon you and why?
The one that I will never forget, as I mentioned, Dr. Umar Abdul Kafi, and I met him after that, and I used to go, learn from him and write everything he says. And I would translate it in English and I would give it in Bermuda. That's how I started. Just to translate. I would take all of his, the ayat Dar al-Akhirah, and translate it into English and say it. I didn't know, I just translate. And I remember when I saw him coming to visit, or I went to see him, I hugged him so much, and he didn't know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used him as a sabab, a reason for me to come back on the path. And I will never forget this Dr. Umar Abdul Kafi. And one, of course, that touched me a lot was Sheikh Muhammad Hassan. He is the one that I learned a lot from him, and there's so many others. I won't forget, of course, one of my professors, Dr. Salah al-Sawi. Learned a lot from him, Jazallah khairan, Dr. Hussein Shawat from AIU and so on. These were my teachers and we're still learning. But certainly number one on the rank, hands down, is Dr. Umar Abdul Kafi, because he was there, turning point in my life. Allah.
Jazakallah khair.